Welcome to the Ocean Race Show, where we're going to have to do things a little bit different because we have just started leg 6 of the Ocean Race and our 5 IMOCAs are on their way to Kiel. So we're going to have to get a move on if we're going to catch them for the flyby, and then if we're going to get to the Hague before they come for the finish line. So while we get ourselves ready to move, let's take a look at the opening stages of this leg. And the start was tricky right from the word go. On the start line, there was a real tussle between Team Militia and Team Wholesome PRB, with each boat trying to outsmart the other. In the end, Team Wholesome PRB managed to dial down and win the leeward overlap, forcing Team Militia into a defensive move which pushed them over the line too early. The German boat was forced to go back to the other side of the line and clear their mistake. In the light winds around the waters in front of the city of Aarhus, it was really dominated by trying to find any puffs you could. 11th Hour Racing Team clearly managed to sail better. They were able to keep their foils out of the water and their sails full, at least for most of the time. The Americans were able to do that more than the others. And 11th Hour Racing Team left Aarhus clearly in the lead, just as the breeze was filling in. After leaving the departure gate, there was a rush to use as much of the northwesterly wind as they could, with all teams hoisting their A2s, a lightweight spinnaker that hasn't seen much action through the big ocean legs. But here, in the lighter winds of coastal racing, it's going to be crucial. It's not the most straightforward sail to fly though, and there was little time to stop and triple check on board 11th Hour Racing Team before it was hoisted. Everyone followed suit, and soon the race was back in light winds as the teams sailing downwind were sailing faster than the wind was filling in behind them, even at these slow speeds.
Hectic start, man. Not a lot of wind. Got out unscathed, but as is usually the case, it compresses again. But good sails up, sun's still up, should be for a couple hours. Off we go.
It might be hectic when you've got sails to change, but in those moments where the wind died away and becalmed the boats, there wasn't much for our sailors to do but wait. For Guyot Environment Team Europe, back on the water and racing with repaired foils and a new mast, strong winds or light, they were pleased to be in the race and work the boat hard on every possible puff of wind.
Okay, once I get it, Robert, shoot it in a second. 3, 2, 1, try and get the sheet. Just pull it by hand.
The spinnaker sheets being too heavy, Philip had to scale the outrigger and trim the sail by hand to try and encourage it to fly.
The wind is kind of coming in and out and it's in a thin band, and we're trying to get to a mark over there. But every time we sail up there, we sail out of the wind. So
the mark is 130 degrees, huh?
Yeah, so we actually got in a good position, but then sailed probably 100 meters. I don't know why I was inside, but probably 100 meters too far out of the pressure, and the other guys that jibed just before us got into it. So they've extended, but they've stopped again now as well. It's going to be very hard to get to this mark, basically, because every time you sail towards it, you sail out of the wind.
The wind kept filling in from behind, meaning anyone left behind wasn't there for long, with the fleet constantly bunching back up together. It was now a game of wits, or at least trying to be clever enough to play 2 or 3 light patches ahead, positioning yourself for wind to come, not what you had now.
Où est-ce qu'on va être pour la relance?
On va être là ou là?
Voilà, on est tous envie d'être là.
On sera jamais là-bas.
Haha!
While the breeze was having its fun with the fleet, the sailors tried to remain level-headed. Not easy when you're powerless to control what might happen, but new helm Johan Richom of Team Wholesome PRB is an experienced coastal racer.
Speed's alright, it's very puffy on the water, so as soon as somebody gets a gust, they jump back at you. So Malizia was like 2 or 3 miles behind, and they got the magic gust, and now they're right next to us.
Once the wind arrived and our IMOCAs managed to round the next waypoint, they headed south in a tight bunch with Team Militia in the lead and 11th Hour Racing Team at the back. It wasn't long before Team Wholesome PRB found some pace and slipped into the front, while the Americans passed both Guyot Environment Team Europe and Bioterm, where Paul Mayer jibed away to find better breeze out to the east, but then came back into the pack with little gained. There was small choice in the route, with anyone jibing out of sync rejoining the fleet in the same position. In the darkness, Guyot Environment Team Europe was fixing issues before they became problems, scaling the mast to make sure the sock for the spinnaker was ready should the breeze build quickly.
We have some turns in the downline for the socket for the A2, so once we need to drop it, we need that ready, so we send Phil now up the mast to get it cleared. Yeah, it's dark, it's not easy. Maybe for him it's good, so you don't see how high he is.
It's a long way up, and without a wireless headset to talk through what's needed, Benjamin Dutroux found a simple solution.
I just remove the blocks, okay?
For the fleet, the wind made the night's racing hard, with the breeze building quickly above the forecast, all the teams needing to react quickly, but Team Wholesome PRB using all the opportunities to stay in front.
We are leading the fleet with one bit over 1 mile in front of 11th Hour, and the others are a bit further back, like 2 to 3 miles behind us. I won't say that we have sailed perfectly so far. We've done a few mistakes on maneuvers, but so far so good, improving jibe after jibe and maneuver after maneuver.
A good southerly run for Team Wholesome PRB, but the moment also featured some big losses, with Team Militia slipping to 5th and some big winners as the sun came up. 11th Hour Racing Team had manoeuvred their way into 2nd, right on the heels of Team Wholesome PRB. For these two teams, separated by 1 point on the overall leaderboard, there is little time to catch up. They need to make full use of these last 2 legs, and that means it's going to be an intense battle and potentially one that sometimes takes things closer than the other teams think is right.
To take Tango 9, the next yellow in the front of you. That's the last in the south, and then you have then you might go to the west to the boy Tango 8.
Are they speaking to Halsey?
Right. Wholesome has gone into a military zone, and they're trying to play the cards that they're in the ocean race racing, and the military don't want them in there, so tell them to get out. Wholesome's delaying so that it benefits them.
They delay the moment they're gonna have to exit anyway.
They have to exit. Normally they should have exited straight away. They're playing a bit illegally with fire. I don't think they heard on the VHF this morning. That was the firing zone was active, because they can activate the zone with no warning. So.
But Team Wholesome PRB, despite sailing wherever they felt the breeze was, could not hold back 11th Hour Racing Team. And as Benjamin Schwartz and his team jibed off to the east, Charlie Enright cut through and into the lead as the fleet pushed on towards the German flyby mark. And this is where the boats are heading. Behind me is the Kiel Ford, where the mark is going to be set for the rounding. And our boats are going to have a very tricky time making their way down the river, avoiding all the pitfalls with the breeze and, of course, the spectators and the exclusion zones before getting here to the welcome of the crowd. Escorts were waiting for our IMOCAs at the entrance to Kiel, where all our teams had to pick their way through the spectators who had come out to see the boats and even to try and match up against them. It was 11th Hour Racing Team who made it first into and down the fjord, the wind light at the bottom, where they rounded in front of the crowd and sailed back north. Next, it was Team Wholesome PRB with new skipper Benjamin Schwartz helping Johan Rochon helm through the fleet of spectators. Bio Term came in and rounded third, riding the increasing wind and making up some ground towards the front runners.
Yeah, I'm so focused, I don't look at the boat, but it looks like it's amazing.
Next was Guyo Environment Team Europe in fourth, and a special welcome from the crowd for Robert Stanjek and Filip Kisecki, both German sailors who have worked harder than most to get to this moment.
Look how many boats. It's unbelievable.
In fifth place, but receiving the biggest cheers, was Boris Herman and the crew of Team Militia. It wasn't a position that the team wanted to be in, trailing the fleet, but the excitement of the crowd gave them a boost they needed. Out of Kiel, the darkness fell, and the boats were back to thinking only about each other, leaving the fans behind, at least the ones in Germany. It was starting to become very easy to see the tiredness in the faces of the sailors, not least 11th Hour Racing Team, still in the lead and with a helpful, more reaching easterly wind. Nonetheless, the team isn't forgetting they are in a race for the overall win. Likewise, Team Holcim PRB, who were just behind.
Do you know where 11th are?
They're too far ahead, and that's not good. I think almost 10 miles or something, 10 or 12 miles. So yeah, they've sailed away now. It's a bit annoying. One little mistake and yep.
So what mistake did we make to let him get away?
We let him get away, that's the mistake. Yeah, we didn't cover this morning. We sailed into an area without wind, and they came in behind us with speed, and then jibed away, and got like kind of a magic gust all the way into the next mark. We never got it, but we never really did the proper thing to get it. So there we go.
And what about coming out from Kiel?
And
since then,
what about it?
we've been yo-yoing back in and forth with them. We catch them up a little bit and then they break away again.
Yeah, exactly. They've slowed down a few times. We have as well, and so every time there is hope, and then there's disappointment. And so now we need to be patient. We'll see. It's never over. Never know what's gonna happen. But it's yeah. It's going to take a lot of work to catch him up.
When the sun came up, the wind was giving all our teams a chance to blast at over 20 knots, including 5th place Team Militia.
Super nice to have some breeze again, and then we're sending it at the moment, like 30 knots, averaging 27 knots, so we're going quite fast to the top of Denmark. Then we will bear away, hoist the kite, still ETA around Sunday afternoon. So tomorrow we're home.
And the wind wasn't done. Watch the display over Rosie's shoulder showing the boat speed in blue.
Yes. Yeah, we could catch Guyo last night. Like the wind increased super quick and we had a beast mode. Like full cowboy mode, a little bit. We had too many sails out basically, way too much power.
Quick reactions and a good knowledge of how to keep the boat on the edge did indeed get them into 4th, but it's a long way from here to Team Holcim PRB and 11th Hour Racing Team, their rivals in the overall victory. Because at that same moment, as the sun was rising, 11th Hour Racing Team was that far ahead that they were already at the top of Denmark. And like Rosie, Charlie Enright was looking forward to the finish.
Today is the morning, so I'm told, but it always kind of seems like the morning here. We're just at the top of Denmark, trying to skate by a little TSS here. And we got Holcim in sight. Did a nice job stretching on them overnight, but they got right back into us in a light patch. But we had a good peel, and we're in good shape. Spirits are high, people are tired, but I don't know, I think there's only 30 more hours of this nonsense, so we got it out.
While 11th Hour Racing Team were making quick work of the miles at the top of Denmark, with Team Holcim BRB just behind, Team Militia was starting to close up to Bioterm in third. Getting a podium finish for Boris Herrmann is vital to keep chances of an overall victory alive. They might not have done a flyby here in Kiel, but the VO65s are also back on the water, and they started the second stage of the Ocean Race VO65 sprint, and they had a tricky time getting out of Aarhus, but the wind was a little bit kinder than it was for the IMOCAs. Once they left the shore, along with the IMOCAs, the VO65s had to endure the agony of light winds during a beautiful sunset. Over the night, the wind filled in from the northeast and brought the fleet all the way around the corner of Denmark into the North Sea. Wind Whisper Racing Team have been leading the fleet and could be on their way to making it a clean sweep of winning all the stages and import races of the Ocean Race VO65 sprint, but they still have about 20 hours of racing left to go, and the others are right behind them. Both the 65s and the IMOCAs are making good progress to The Hague, and the estimated time for the finish is around midday on Sunday. And the results of this leg is going to be crucial for the overall Ocean Race trophy. If 11th Hour Racing Team gets a maximum of 5 points here, they'll move one step further away from Team Holcim PRB in second place. And for Team Militia, they are in a race against time to try and salvage some good scores out of this leg. The final few miles are going to have everything to play for.